So in a recent survey, marketers highlighted attribution as a top pain point in their CTV journeys. Joining me today to discuss the best model for tracking performance metrics from the TV screen, as well as all things CTV attribution, is Matt Collins, the Director of Product Marketing at Mountain. Welcome, Matt.
Yeah, you bet.
All right, did you do your vocalese backstage with the piano?
We had a piano in the back, so we were all
Sweet.
practicing scales, so yeah, we're good.
All right, let's get into it. So, all things CTV attribution. So how has attribution evolved from the linear TV model?
So first, when we talk about attribution, what we really mean is an answer to the simple question, so what happened? And we're all wanting to understand the impact of an ad exposure to a change in behavior. And the change in the arc over the last 80 years, we think about the first TV ad ran during a New York Giants baseball game back in the 1940s. The changes have been pretty significant. And so I'll liken it a bit to what we're seeing in the world of the transition from the internal combustion engine to electric vehicles. And what I mean by that is if we take a step back and look at what's currently possible in the world of linear attribution, understanding what happened in linear TV, it's actually never been better and more refined than it is. But in looking at all those refinements, we've come to recognize that we've gone about as far as we can go. And it's pretty evident that what's coming next will surpass it, both in terms of the internal combustion engine and electric vehicles and in terms of connected TV. So we think about linear TV, what are the constraints? The constraints are, number one, it's not running on digital plumbing and wiring, so it's not able to run on the same backbone that powers so much of digital. And number two, it's always been sample-based. I think a lot of people are surprised to hear that the main currency that supports linear television, Nielsen, operates in fewer than 50,000 households out of 120 million plus in the United States. So it's always been a very...
All the talk has been going around Nielsen coming up with a new currency that's basically still the case. They're just looking for a more accurate way to do it, but it's still the same model.
It's still, that's right, it's still based on the core of it for television. It is impossible today to be able to capture and understand what happens in every household, which means it's impossible to really know the impact of an ad on what happens in that household. And so we're left with a vast probabilistic way of measuring what happened, and the time and effort required to gather this information, as imperfect as it is, can be long and expensive. Sometimes arriving too late to really make a big difference in terms of altering the direction of a campaign. And then finally, I would say, look, marketers have adjusted to this and have come to accept the fact that there are certain things that they can measure a bit more confidently, and a lot of that has sort of gravitated more towards the upper funnel.
Right. So how can advertisers be sure that the measured outcomes are actually from CTV and not from their other channels?
There are ways to get some assurances that what they're seeing they can confidently attribute to a particular source. I mean, I think most marketers these days are accustomed to the notion of a UTM tag, which simply tags a referring bit of traffic and links it back to a source. So certainly one way of just being smarter about knowing all the different ways customers can find your brand, your product, your service is to make sure you've got tags and you've got then a system that can separate and deduplicate dedupe the inbound traffic that comes from these channels and work with vendors who can work with you to make sure that you're getting that very filtered, precise view of the impact of all your media channels on the outcomes that matter.
All right, so if I'm in the market for a CTV provider, how would you suggest that I evaluate the accuracy of their attribution models?
The first thing that I would look at is the roots of the provider that's offering up this perspective, their model in the first place. And what I mean by that is that if a provider is rooted very much in the world of linear and where still the bulk of their spend is happening on linear, then it stands to reason that the main engine behind their view of attribution is going to be tied to their best attempts through dealing with all of the sort of imperfections and constraints that I mentioned on linear to bring clarity to that medium. And oftentimes in that circumstance, connected TV advertising can sort of seem like a bit of a bolt-on. So first very practical question is just simply understand in a roughly, what's the balance of spend towards linear versus CTV, and how do they, if they are dabbling in both of those places, what's that balance like? But then beyond that, look, there are, I think, three things that really matter to a marketer looking to take full advantage of a connected TV screen. The first is, was my ad viewable? Can I see which ad was at least viewable? I can't obviously account for when people get up to go grab a soda from the refrigerator or other bio breaks, but I can at least know, was my ad visible on screen? The second question is, can I adjust the attribution window, meaning the time that I'm going to allow for when an ad exposure happened to when the action occurred, meaning maybe they visited my website or they opened up or downloaded an application. Can I adjust that? Or am I bound to what a vendor is telling me I have to accept from their approach? Those are the sort of two of the really, really big things. Then the third, as I mentioned, is just being able to parse traffic from different sources. Can I, through my various approaches to attribution, can I single out and identify that traffic came from social, that traffic came from search, that traffic came from connected TV, and can I organize and see that in a single source of truth transparently?
Can you?
Yeah, that is possible today. That is possible today. Mountain, and we're just one of many. Mountain is a self-serve CTV platform built for performance marketers. We have an integration with Google Analytics, and we're integrated fully now with GA4, Google Analytics 4, which does allow a marketer in all of the ways that they can customize their installation of Google Analytics to be able to see CTV alongside their other marketing channels.
In the introduction, I mentioned how attribution is like one of the top pain points for marketers looking to work in CTV or actually working in it. So what about, how widespread is inaccurate attribution right now? And you already gave like some of your, your best practices for how to find better partners, but talk a little bit about that.
I would say your perception of how accurate or inaccurate sometimes comes down to a core notion of what you believe. I had a boss of mine several years ago who likened devotion to a particular approach to attribution almost to a sense of religion, of what is it that you believe, last touch, first touch, multi-touch. Those are all ways, and they can be argued. I think that the idea of being able to really parse this out and sort of sift truth from maybe fiction, I would say begins with erring on the side of conservatism, meaning that it is understanding that it's in the best interest of a marketer, of the tools they use to show the best possible results to a campaign. And if we bring an eye of skepticism and of conservatism to be able to say, are those results really trustworthy? And to be able to know how to back up, track the results back to their source, and ask the right questions can allow any marketer to have an empowered, capable conversation with someone who lives in an ad tech stack all day long, maybe from a vendor. So it's hard for me to make a broad statement on the state of the industry on this. What I would say is that I believe that the arc of marketing is bending towards outcomes and being able to deliver the kind of results.
There's demand for it. Everybody's demanding ROAS or ROI, right?
Correct.
So, yeah.
Think about having the conversation with your CFO and using the results of your marketing to argue for next month's marketing budget, which, by the way, that is a muscle that a lot of direct-to-consumer brands have refined. And bring that same sort of rigor to your whatever attribution tool that you use and demand that it hold up to what it is that you require. And I think you're more likely to be able to sift out some of the junk.
I mean, when you talked about linear a little bit before, it really seemed like, okay, well, that old model was almost as much art as it was science, right? So the promise or the appeal of working in CTV is it's a digital channel. It's supposed to be more science than art, but there still seems to be a little bit of that art in there when we're talking about all the different multi-touch attribution, et cetera, all those different touch points, right? So where actually are we right now?
I think that we are, again, I think we're moving more and more towards the notion of valuing the outcome more than some of the things that are up or a little bit higher in the funnel. So you and I can argue all day long about whether or not a brand's sort of creative and the impact of creative on a particular outcome and to the extent that people like it or familiar with it, or the fact that we reach more customers with it, and now on its own, is that its own standard metric? Is that something worth banking on? I think we can argue that. At Mountain, we tend to preach conservatism. So if we see, for example, that a conversion happened, even if you, John, saw an ad from an advertiser running on Mountain, but you clicked on a paid search ad or on an ad on TikTok, Mountain takes zero credit for that. So we err on the side of conservatism, and that we certainly recommend that marketers do the same.
Okay, so let's speak a little bit to measuring incrementality of the incrementality of adding CTV to an advertising strategy, and how does CTV affect the performance of other channels like social, paid search, et cetera?
We actually have a slide that I'll ask if we can showcase. There we go. So we get this question an awful lot from marketers who want to know, gosh, if I run connected TV, what kind of impact can I see? And we would say, first of all, you will see an impact from just the connected TV on its own, standing on its own. You'll see the right results. If you are strategic about managing the two big levers that every marketer has available to them, creative and audiences. And if you do that right, and if you're running concurrently with search and social, you can see some of these results. So on the left column of these numbers, you'll see a 30-day out impact, and on the right side, you'll see the 90-day impact. And you can see the numbers get stronger and stronger over time, which kind of makes sense, that as ads get more reach, more audience reach, and as consumers see them more, you start to see a nice uptick, a 22% lift when an advertiser's running on Mountain concurrently with paid search. Their search results increase by 22% over a 90-day period. For social, it's closer to 9%. And even extending to emails, we see a pretty significant uptick in terms of conversion rate from email. And that, by the way, extends to both B2B email and B2C. So we see a lot of advertisers who are jumping into this, into connected TV from the B2B space.
But that email number is insane.
Yeah, and again, I think it stands to reason why these would have a symbiotic relationship. I mean, search is a way of being able to capture the most immediate intent. But, would any of us, before Dollar Shave Club came along and started running that brilliant ad on YouTube, would any of us have known to search for a subscription razor, men's razors? We needed that juice from, in that case, a terrifically done video ad in order to, goose all those great searches.
Right. We just have a couple of minutes left, and I just want to put on your, take out your crystal ball and just let us know where do you think we're headed in 2024. Like, will CTV attribution, vis-a-vis what I was saying before, ever attain the holy grail of, flawless measurement or foolproof measurement?
No, because we're not foolproof and we're not flawless. And I say we, I mean
love that
people.
Conservatism.
No, I mean, I would love to be able to say that there is perfection awaiting, but again, so much of it will depend on interpretation. I think people can reasonably argue the relative impact in a very multi-channel world of what happens when we put paid search alongside, TV. I do think things are going to get better, and by the way, we're showing a different chart here, but what I wanted to impress upon here is it is worth investing in making a great campaign, and by great I mean however you define your result, focusing on audience and creative. And that when the best marketers do that, they see that the results, like the results in the 90th percentile compared to the ones at the midpoint, it's not linear, it's not a straight line. It is exponentially better. It's in all of our best interests to focus on getting audiences right, really focusing on where can I have the biggest bang, where am I going to find audiences that are going to most resonate. If I'm sitting on a bunch of first-party data or CRM data, how can I light that up in this case in the world of connected TV to make that happen? And when it comes to creative, how can I make a big impact? In 2016, 2017, Nielsen Catalina did a study that attempted to parse out the impact in sales in the CPG category of the brand, the marketing channel, audiences, creative, and the result was, to me, shocking, that 47% of all campaign outcomes were attributed to the power of the creative, 53% everything else. So if you can make a great ad, I'm telling you, it will cover up a lot of sins in any other area of your marketing.
We just have a few seconds left, but one of the things that's most fascinating to me as where we are right now in CTV is all the studies that come out have shown that not just the younger generations, but even older generations are now, I think it's over 50% of Gen Xers and Boomers are actually into streaming now. When will the CTV ad spend overtake linear?
Gosh. Well, first of all, I will say linear is probably not going to go away anytime soon. There are ample reasons for that. The spend is going to grow fast. I don't know if it will fully, if you're asking me honestly, I don't know that it will ever fully recapture or is not likely to recapture the 70 billion plus linear TV market across local and broadcast, national, cable, all that. It is growing, but it is going to be it already is a fundamentally different medium, and marketers would be wise to approach it differently.
All right, to be continued. Matt Collins from Mountain, thank you so much.
Thank you, John.
And thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.